writing and publishing the research paper. Actually, this is for young students. This is not for worthy professors who have there in this conference. But this is very basic for the students to just to understand and familiarize with the writing and publishing the research paper, because I think and I feel there will be many students who will look for masters and PhD degree in near future. So it indeed can provide them the basics of writing and publishing the research paper in this presentation, which I will talk about in 10 to 15 minutes, because I have only been given 20 minutes. So I just want to keep things very short and try to complete this presentation in 20 minutes span. So this is the highlights of this presentation. Actually, this presentation focus on two things. One, how to write a research paper, and two, when to write a research paper. So first I began with the definition of the research paper. Maybe many of the students know about the research paper, but I just want to reiterate it here, just for the knowledge of those who have actually no sense that what is a research paper. Actually, research paper is nothing but an art of communication. It means that how the research ideas, how the research innovations shared with the audience of the diverse nature from wide-ranging audience. It is a kind of communication tool, like just like presentation, just like thesis, just like report. So research paper is a kind of communication tool, in a simple words, that it can be used to share the research findings which other can follow and also understand easily. Next question which arises in our mind is that why do we need to write research paper? So it is very simple. We just want to write research paper to share our findings, to share new knowledge with the audience, with the students, with all those who are new in the field, so that they can be familiarized with this with our research finding, and they can also can get some benefit from our research results as well, in terms of which we write in terms of research paper. So this is the part first of this presentation, that what are the important consideration while writing a research paper. So let's begin with the key contents of the paper. We know that majority of the papers begin with title, then abstract, then introduction, then body of the paper, which further include methodologies, analytical analysis, result, discussion, and finally and ultimately the conclusion. Here, I just want to quote a very interesting observation which has been reported in many researches a while ago, that the number of the readers tend to decrease with the progressing section of the each paper. That means if 90% of the people or 100 people read your title, only out of those 100, 10 to 5 people will read the whole paper. It means that the readers tend to reduce with each progressing section. And recently I found a research study that only 80%, only 20% paper are read by the authors and and their editors only. No one else read it. This is just for a fun fact which I just want to share with you. Now, when we think to write the title of a paper, we should be keeping in our mind that the title of the paper should be concise. It should not be too long. It should not be too small. It should be concise, number one. Number two, it should be reflective of your words, reflective of your work. What does that mean? It means that if you're heading towards north, you cannot write in title of your paper that you are heading toward west. So it will mislead the reader. So you have to be very, very careful while choosing the title of the paper, ensuring the fact that the title represents your work which has been disclosed in the paper. Number three, an important one also, that we see in many papers, the people are not very much sensitive towards using the terms and terminologies while writing the title of the paper. So one thing we need to keep in our mind, that we have to be very, very sensitive in selection of the words while drafting the title of the paper. Words like novel, words like new, words like creative idea, these are very sensational words and normally avoided in writing the title of the paper. Unless you feel that your paper is too novel, too new, then of course you can try to catch the attention of the reader and also the attention of editor while writing these words. In that case, it is permissible, but majority of the cases we know that the work is not too novel, work is not too new. It can be the extension of the previous work. Thereby we have to be very sensitive while selecting the words like novel and new, etc. Now the next is abstract. So there are generally two models of writing the abstract. One is explained here in this slide, which you can see that this abstract is from one of my own papers. So this abstract is divided into four parts. You can see that if opening part is the introduction, a bit of background, thesis statement or opening remarks. So it contains the opening remarks. The abstract began with some background of the research. Then the major contribution of your study, that what have you contributed in this paper. Number third is the verification process. So how we need to verify the findings. So we have to explain the reader the tool, the methodologies which we have used for the verification purpose of our any scheme, of our any algorithm, of our anything else which we have done in the paper. Last but not the least is achievements are clear. In the last section of the abstract, we normally narrate to the audience and to the editor that what are the key achievements of this paper. This can also be done by comparing our existing work with another, so that the readers and editor can see that this has been done previously and your work is improved, in what manner your work is improved and better as compared to previous one. So these are the achievements which we normally mention in the abstract. So this is the structure of abstract model one. You can read the contents of this slide. I have just narrated. This is the extension of the previous slide just to explain the introduction, the methodology, result, and conclusion. All these we have to briefly and very concisely explain into the abstract. This is model one. And model two, which I have not added in this presentation. Model 2, normally there are some authors who skip the background and the introduction in the abstract. Rather, they prefer to narrate these fact in introduction part. So they just start by their own work. Normally they say this paper contains this. They start from right from the first sentence. They start explaining their work. So this is the approach two. Normally authors can opt for approach one and approach two. It depends on the nature of the author, how he wishes to proceed with this kind of models. So as far as the writing of the abstract are concerned, so normally in abstract, the editors and students, we advise to the students to use simple present indefinite sentence structure. Maybe someone is messaging, I think, the questions.
Sir, you may continue. There is a question answer session in the last.
Okay, so you can keep your questions with you. I will answer. I will not leave the presentation unless I answer the questions.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So we have seen that I was just explaining what kind of English sentence is the nature of the English grammar which we use in writing the abstract. So it should be very simple present tense. We don't need to be very, fancy with the words. And normally it is preferred to use simple present indefinite tense. And we also need, it is preferred to avoid passive voice sentences. Sometimes we are compelled to use passive voice sentences, but it is good practice to avoid passive voice sentences. Now, the next portion after the abstract is key portion of the paper, which is called introduction. So introduction contains the theoretical context of the paper. It sets the tone of the paper. It catches the reader interest and it communicates the hypothesis and thesis statement to the reader and in particular to editor. So what does that mean? After abstract, introduction is the main part. It gives the reader full picture of your paper. Number one, that how this paper is different from the previous work. The introduction contained the literature review, it contained the general background, and then based upon the literature review and the general background, the reader the writer draft a thesis statement that how this research work is better as compared to previous one, or how this research work is improved version of the previous researches which has been carried out in the same field. Now these are the strategies to write the introduction of any paper. I have already mentioned that we need to first explain the research background, then while writing the introduction we have to keep the key question, the key component in our mind, that this paper can, what kind of the gaps this paper will bridge, so that it is new as compared to the previous one. So we have to keep that main and pivotal question into our mind. Now we have to focus our present research, that okay, whatever has been done in the past, it is gone and dusted. So this is the new work which I have done. So the main focus should be on our new work, not on the previous one. So keep the introduction concise as possible, concise and precise. Concise and precise. So introduction should be concise and precise. It should not be too much elongated and it should not be too short, so that the readers cannot understand what is new and what is old. So it has to be in a standard form, and it explain all the contours of the introduction. Number Next point is avoid using personal pronoun like I, my. I have seen many young students who, when they write something about their project, they always use I did this, I did that, I have done this, my group has done this. No, these kind of words are normally gives a bad impression to the readers. So it is always advised not to use such personal pronouns in writing, in particular writing the research paper which are going to be submitted in some journals. Next and last point is that avoid making sensational and emotional statements. So we also have to be very careful while writing the research paper. We are not required to make some emotional and sensational statements. Sensational statements maybe get the reader's attention, but they're not too much worthy. So we have to be very careful while writing the sentences, in particular the introduction. So in this slide, you can see the flow of the introduction. Beginning with the background, then literature review, then contribution of our paper, and finally the paper structures. Paper structure is also explained, so that the readers, while jumping to the section 2 of the paper, will have a brief outline that this section 2 and section 3 and section 4 contain what kind of information. So it is always given in introduction. It is good practice to provide paper structure in the introduction, because while moving to each section, the reader will have the idea that section 2 contains this, section 3 contains this, and section 4 contains this, and go on. Other aspects, the rationale, get familiar with the result of other in same field. Yes, this is very important. While you are writing the research paper, you have to understand what kind of results have already been produced and reported in different journals. So we have to keep the nature of those results into our mind while writing the research paper. Another key point is that we need to cite the researchers, the published research and their authors very gracefully with good remarks. You see, if an author A has not done a good job, but you have to explain the negative point, but in a positive manner. If I'm not doing well, you have to say, okay, that you are trying, but these are the lapses which you need to cover. These are the lapses which you need to make up. So we have to be very gentle while addressing the other researchers, because one thing we also need to keep in our mind, that the paper which we cite in our introduction, maybe one of them is the potential reviewer of your paper. So if you make a negative remarks about the writer of the paper and he receives your paper, then they can be the severe implications. So we have to be very gentle with the other researchers. The essential part is that we also need to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism in introduction part is a normal practice. So while writing the introduction, make sure that nothing is copy paste, and it should be plagiarism free. And about the length of the introduction, an American professor once told us that the introduction of the paper should be around 15% of the full length of the paper. So introduction should not be too long, it should not be too less. It should be around 15% of the full length of the paper. Now, body of the paper. So body of the paper may vary from different fields to fields, and it can be adjusted according to requirement of the paper and requirement of the result. So there are not very hard and fast rule in terms of body of the paper. It can contain methodology, some analytical analysis, simulation results, experimental results, and finally discussions, etc. experimental uh, Experimental results, simulation result, and discussion, in some papers they are merged together in the same section, so it is also a practice. Yes, the point to ponder is that at the beginning of each section, we need to provide some explanation of each section, because section can be 2-3 pages long. So we have, at the beginning of the section, we have to provide the reader a general introduction about the section, a general overview about the section, so that while going through your section, your paper, he may already have the idea that what you have written in that particular section of the paper. Last part of the paper is conclusion. In conclusion, it is important to restate your topic and its importance. That's number one. Restate your thesis statement or claim. You need to restate your claims about your research and addressing the opposing views. That is also a very good practice, that if there exists an opposing view in comparison with your research work, then it is also good practice to narrate that opposing view as well. So it is good practice, but if someone wishes to avoid it, yes, certainly he can. It's not essential, of course. Call for action or overview of the future research possibilities. Yes, this is also a very important point, that if your research work has future potential for extension, so in conclusion you can narrate that particular point as well, that this research work in future can be extended in manner like this and this. Till here, I have concluded my first part of the presentation. I don't know how much time I have taken, but maybe 5 minutes more to complete this presentation, and then I go for question answer session. So far, we have seen that how to write how research paper written. Now we see how to conduct research in order to make sure that we are in a position to write the research paper. This is number one, is that how to find a research topic. Research topic, firstly, we find the identify real problem in some applied areas. So we need to find the real time problem and then proposes its solution. Like in this conference is being held in a COVID day, so this COVID is a problem. So online conferences, online research communication, and online discussions with the professors about research progress is becoming a norm. So that means that if there exists a real problem and you propose that solution to the real problem, it will have a great impact. You have to create innovative formulation of the problem. There exists a problem, that's fine, but you have to explain the problem first, and then once you did it, then you can propose a solution. Target broad and long lasting impact of the problem. This is also important point, that you cannot propose a solution for the day 1 or 2 or 3. You have to see the future aspect, you have to see the future of this research your topic. Focus on new methodologies. This is also important, that we need to focus on new methodologies. New methodologies mean there are some existing solutions, so we have to focus on new ways to get same solution, the efficient ways, the effective ways, the cheaper ways. So in this way, the new methodologies can be handled. Key points, a good research topic have at least one of the more characteristics which has been listed below. Number one, it should have some new application. The idea, the research topic which you are proposed must have some new application. As well, a new methodology or algorithms, you can use new methodologies or algorithms which makes your research topics better as compared to other ones. This is my own practice. So this is very important point. The student who are in this presentation, I request you to keep focus on this slide. Number one, you have to start reading papers. Read papers, read widely, at least a paper in a week. A paper, first start with a paper in a month, then try to reduce the span of reading paper in a week, paper in a 2 week, then paper in a week, then maybe paper in a 2 to 3 days. So try to read more papers. That's number one. Then critically analyze it. Then you need to critically analyze your paper, that if this paper has some disadvantages, some negative points, some drawbacks, you can improve it or not. Then you need to reproduce results. This is also important aspect of writing research papers. If you reproduce a research result, then it means 50% of your job or 45% of your job is done, because reproducing result will help you a lot in order to implement the new schemes which you propose in the future. Identify some gaps. So if there exists some gaps or lapses in existing research work, of course you have to identify those gaps, and then based on those gaps, you have to propose a solution to bridge the gap between solution and the problem. And this circle goes on and on from 1 to 5. If you are failed, then start from 1. If you fail again, then again start from 1. And eventually, after maybe one semester, you are in a position to do something new which is novel in your field. Now, next point is, what is top journal? A flagship journal in any field. In your field, and the top journals. For example, in electrical engineering, we know that the journals published by IEEE Transaction are very top journals, and then the journals published by elsewhere are very top journals. Then we know that journals published by Wiley, they are very top journals. So as a student, you need to understand which are the top journals, which are the top journals. You need to understand. You can take help from your teacher if you are not familiarized with the journals. With the passage of time, if you are new in research, maybe for 1 semester, 2 semester, you feel difficult in identifying the good journals. But when the time passes, you yourself realize which journal is good and which journal is bad. So there are some challenges in publishing top journals: low acceptance rate and lengthy critical review process. Yes, this is the big challenge. The If a journal is good, it means that it will have low acceptance rate. Majority of the papers will be rejected, and it will have very long and lengthy review process. And sometimes the review process can take more than a year. So you have to be very patient if you have submitted your paper into a very good journal. Now, publishing research paper, key points to remember. Understand the type of topic favored by the journal. It may, if you are working in an electrical engineering topic, you are not supposed to submit journal to a mechanical, the journal which supports mechanical topic. So you have to be very careful about selecting the journal. Read the mission statement. Every journal has its mission statement, that what kind of the paper the journal support and what kind of paper they don't support. So you have to read that statement very precisely, very accurately, so that you can understand it. Now, next step is the editor interest and expectation. So when you are submitting the paper, you are advised to check the editorial staff of the journal, because in editorial staff, you may have the idea that what kind of field these editors belongs to and what kind of the topic the editors favor. Understand other expectations. Sorry, I missed a point. Understand writing format and style. Every journal has its own writing style, reference style. So you have to understand the formatting of each journal very carefully. Understand other expectations. When you are writing the paper, there are expectations of the editor, there are expectations of the reader. So you have to understand about those expectations. Read published paper. If you are submitting a paper in any journal, first thing is that you need to read their published paper so that you can understand what kind of paper the journal support and what is the nature of format and other details as well. Writing response letter. So the first step is that when you submit a paper, you receive a review. You receive a review, and the reviewer will give you some comments about your paper. And if you agree about those comments, then you have to provide the detail that, okay, you have suggested this, we agree, and we have changed the paper accordingly. But if you disagree, even then you have to be very polite, you have to be very pleasant in your remarks. You cannot outrightly reject the editor's opinion outrightly, because you're a student, and you have to be very careful while addressing the editors and reviewers, because if they get anguish with your reply, then of course your paper will be done and dusted from that journal. So
Excuse
this
me,
is
sir.
how. Yes, sir.
Sir, we are running short of time, so can you please conclude?
Yes, this is just the last slide.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So these are just responses of the letter. So maybe this is where you can change the colors of question answer so that the editor can understand which is question and which is answer. What can we do for the rejected paper? Of course, if the paper is rejected, we can improve it and try to submit to some other channel. It is not important. This is the last slide of this presentation. First, you have to understand this tree. This green is the main topic, and this blue is the subtopic. If you remain closer to the main topic, your research will have more impact. It will impact more, and wide range effects will be observed. But if you drift away from the main topic, then it will lose the long lasting impacts. Thank you. If some questions, maybe now you can ask.
Dear audience, you can ask the questions, please.
Now you can send me the question in comment section. No question?
It
And
was really
finally,
very interesting session, sir.
finally,
It
Saab
was
has said that what is plagiarism? Plagiarism means that if you copy something from a source without citing it, this is called plagiarism. Don't copy. That's it. Simple answer. S1, S2, S3. Where I have used S1, S2, S3. Yes, of course, you can take ideas from published papers. Yes. Oh, S1, S2, S3 means subtopic. Subtopic 1, subtopic 2, subtopic 3. These are just subtopic. The main topic, subtopic, and then subtopic. So if you drift away from the main topic, then of course, your impact will be very little. As far as the length of paper, as Ms. Fatma has asked that the length of the paper, it depends upon your research content. How much the content do you have? Normally, if you are writing a research paper, it can be 10 to 15 pages long. 10 to 15 pages, the normal length of a paper. For a journal paper, for conference paper, it is almost half of it, maybe six. Six is maximum for the conference paper. Again, someone has asked MATLAB or the software. So please remember that in every field, there are different software or tools which have been used. For example, in electrical, MATLAB is the most favorable tool. And if there are some other tools which are unique in that particular field, of course, you can use. MATLAB is not compulsion. Fatma again has asked a question that when we write research paper, of course, when we have something to write, then we can write a research paper, of course. When you have something to speak, then you can speak. If you don't have content to speak, then there is no need to speak in that case. Report